Oh, there we
This
go.
meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, 7 o'clock. I'd like to start the Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting for Thursday, February 20th. We have a guest speaker tonight coming later, so I'd like to move to the roll call. I'm the chair, John Flanders. Sylvia Alexander's online. Alan.
Present.
Ellie
Hi.
Bird online. Right.
Present.
Mary Ellen Gibbs.
Present.
And Dr. Wayne DeVito. Present. Great. Ingrid. Present. And Margaret, and then Rosemary up here. Okay. Julie raised, okay, great. Online. Now, we could go on the,
Huh?
Your call
yeah.
forwarded. The person is not at the tone. Please record the message. When you have finished recording, hang up.
Can we make a motion to approve the minutes from January?
Motion approved.
Approved. Not a second? Great, thanks. They are approved. Now, the report is that we have a lot of, step streets that are being reviewed and they're submitted to the, DOT. So everyone had that package. All these reports are being submitted to the pictures. And also the, fiscal year 26 is, the step streets, all that is being submitted to the DOT. And what we also have tonight is, the law of the Priscilla's law from, last week's discussion. The New York City Council, is issuing this law. We think it should go into effect March 7th.
They can't hear you so loud.
Okay, March 7th is the Priscilla's law. It's going into effect. So we're gonna have Jeffrey Kimmelman from the Bronx DA's office hopefully come and speak to us. Does anyone have any questions or wanted to follow up about the discussion and the voting for the resolution from public safety on Tuesday? Nope. Okay.
Down there behind you. I think there's a minute. No, I hear it is. Here he is.
There, okay. I'd like to introduce Jeff Kimmelman. I'm pleased and honored to introduce our guest. He has a very impressive background. Jeff has been working at the DA's office for almost 10 years. He worked in vehicular crimes unit for the past 6 years. Jeff has a remarkable record leading the vehicular crimes unit as the deputy bureau chief. Before that, Jeff worked at Burns and Harris. Also, Jeff had the privilege of clerking at the U.S. District Court of for the Eastern District of New York for the Honorable Joseph Bianco. Jeff graduated from Thoreau summa cum laude and faculty fellow. He's the 2008 New York State Bar Association Legal Ethics Competition winner and the Cali Award winner for academic excellence. So just for everyone's background, the Bronx DA's office serves 1.4 million members of the Bronx community and pursues a safer Bronx through fair justice. So Jeff, the floor is yours.
I really appreciate that warm introduction. It's nice to see everyone. I sad I couldn't make it in person, but I got a newborn at home. So when the workday ends, I got to get back here. But it's really nice to be with you all. I'm really excited to meet people, talk about vehicular crimes, the work that we're doing at the Bronx DA's office, and answer any and all questions that you may have, or at least if I can't give you an answer, I'll get back to you at another time with an answer. So that's what my hopes are today. Like I said, every single day, I'm overseeing all vehicular crimes in Bronx County, in every single precinct, including the 5-0. So, and from the left turn cases that are turning into instant tragedies, to the leaving the scenes, to the forge plates, we're focused on everything. And so I'm here to talk to you about all of that. I know there was a little bit of a discussion, or at least in the agenda, about Priscilla's Law. It's not actually a law yet, I'm sure everyone knows, but it's certainly something that I'm willing and happy to discuss as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Terrific. So, how do you see this law as a tool for prosecutors?
So this is, in terms of, and I just want to say before I get into this, I have not had an opportunity to speak with the DA about this law, or anyone in the public relations office, to see whether she's a proponent or not. But I can, no, and I just want to put that out there. So I don't want to speak,
Sure.
anyone to think I'm speaking in that capacity. But what I will say is, as someone who works for DA Clark, who takes vehicular violence and these any types of vehicular crimes very seriously, that Priscilla's Law, in terms of when I have a motor vehicle case and someone leaves the scene and there's a numbered plate, it is crucial in us identifying the vehicle. So I will, it's in terms of an investigation, when I'm working with the collision investigation squad of the NYPD, and we're using license plate recorders to help us ascertain where the vehicle went, ultimately to locate the vehicle, which is only half the puzzle, because even when you get the car, you still got to put the person behind the steering wheel. And that's something that's always a challenge, but through lots of work, we get it done most of the time. So yeah, sure. If something like Priscilla's Law were to be enacted, it would be a tool for us in terms of being able to, if someone fled the scene of a horrible collision or something like that, of us able to identify the person who was riding the bike.
So is there anything you'd like to see as a prosecutor? Like in an ideal world?
I wish it could be, listen, I know the DA had spoken recently about some discovery reforms. Obviously I champion that. And of course I'm along with DA Clark and her remarks with regards to that. That's certainly something that would assist us, but if you could be more specific, I could probably give you a better answer.
It's just, we were just talking within the what's being proposed in the electric scooter law. How they're defining legal motorized vehicles, or what you need for like ID, and then do you think it would help prosecutors if it were more of a robust legislation?
More than what it is?
Yeah.
So you meaning the proposed Priscilla's Law as it's written, something that's even more robust than that?
Yeah, it is pretty robust now. Yeah.
Listen, right. I think that being able to identify any vehicle is crucial to prosecution. So if there's a law that allows us the ability to identify the vehicle itself and the person who the vehicle is registered to, that is a critical tool for us to identify the person. And it could be as something as a summons of running red lights and stop signs, which can ultimately and many times lead to real horrific tragedies. I see them all the time, unfortunately. And it starts with, the disobedience to our traffic laws. And of course, people are more inclined to flee if they have less of a chance of getting apprehended. and you have less of a chance of getting apprehended if you don't have something identifying you like a plate. So it certainly would be a useful tool. I'm sure that's something that law enforcement across the board would agree with in terms of that law.
Hi Jeffrey.
Hi.
I'm the chair of aging and, I've been pushing for this for like 3 or 4 years already. These poor elderly people are like scared out of their minds. We have a lot of assisted living, senior apartments. And they're using it as a tool, even like if you see two people on a scooter, it's like bye-bye pocketbook. They're like going up to you and grabbing your stuff and people are just scared to death and I think, as you said, it should be, license plates on them, something to hold them accountable, insurance, and this way you can prosecute. I mean, the cops won't chase them through the streets, but they can certainly pick them up on the camera with these plates and to identify them and everything. So hopefully they'll give you guys a good tool to finally, put an end to this craziness.
Oh, and it's really, to be honest, I'm aware of a lot of the legislation that's coming up. This is a law that I've only recently become privy to personally. But it's something that, like I was saying, it's really can be a useful, as we're seeing forged plates even on the people who are supposed to put plates on their car. We're not even seeing actual plates. So I think across the board, the ability to identify people when they're riding, especially when you got an e-bike, because they are very fast and they can be really dangerous. And I think that's the law, if I'm not mistaken, is targeting e-bikes particularly, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And Laura? We have another question online.
Oh, hi.
Laura?
Hi, did you call my name?
Yes, you got a real big echo in there somehow.
Why?
Oh, you have two, things
Two
open.
devices.
Me?
Yeah.
You might be having your cell phone and your computer.
Oh my God, you might be able to hear me. This never happened before. Okay, is that better now?
Do you have your cell phone on Zoom also?
No, I don't have my cell phone on. Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, you're right. I just turned it off. I mean, hearing me once is hard enough. Okay, I'm sorry. No.
Echo.
All right, my question to the, no, this is not working out. I am so sorry.
Can you type it?
No, we don't chat.
Maybe, all right, my question is, I understand from this group, NYC E-Vehicle Safety Alliance, that 90% of riders leave the scene of an accident. Is that seems to be true with what you're saying? Because it's easier, because there's not accountability. Is that what you tend to see? Sorry.
Laura, just log out of one of you're logged on twice. Just log out of one of them.
So I think the question is 90% of the people leave the scene of the crime.
Logged on
Is
twice?
that right?
I didn't log on twice.
Okay, no, it's better.
I'll log out and come back in. Sorry.
All right, log out, yeah.
I have a
Okay.
question, again, Josh.
Okay, shoot.
Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Hello.
I have a question about what is the determinator in whether a summons is returnable to the DMV or criminal court, lower criminal? What's the dividing line?
A traffic summons?
Yeah, versus making it returnable. I think that many people are looking at Priscilla's law as, the ADA coming in and prosecuting these criminally, these incidents. But is there a dividing line that some of these summonses are gonna end up at the DMV?
I mean, that's a great question. From what I've seen from the work I've done since 2019, I mean, I've been in the office since 2008, and I've been doing vehicular crime specifically for since 2019. the end of 2019 until present. Summonses are generally not prosecuted by the prosecutor, right? They're prosecuted by the police officer in traffic court, and generally we don't get involved in those. So I can see why, if you're a proponent of this law, why that would be a concern, because it may not be taken as seriously in the traffic courts. One of the things, I mean, generally, if it was made a misdemeanor, even if it's a low-level unclassified misdemeanor, that would potentially get it into criminal courts. For example, reckless driving is an unclassified misdemeanor punishable by up to 30 days in jail, and those generally go through our criminal courts. The right-of-way law, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the administrative code that was passed during Vision Zero. It's the AC 19, it's AC 19-190. It was essentially a law back when, we had wishful thinking of Vision Zero. We never quite achieved it, but it was a law that was passed at least a decade ago at this point. But the goal of the law was to criminalize civil negligence. Essentially, particularly it was those left turn cases where people were in crosswalks, pedestrians who had the walk signal, they're in a crosswalk, they're doing everything they're supposed to do, and someone's making a left turn, and for whatever reason, they don't see them, they're texting, there's a pillar blocking their view, but they're negligent, and they hit that person and cause injury, serious, or even death. Back in the day, that would just be a summons under VTL 1146. And then they passed that law. And since then, the administrative code, the city council and the mayor at the time, and since then we have prosecuted those cases in criminal court. So I don't know if that helps give a little, flavor to what makes its way out of the traffic courts and into the criminal courts. And a lot of people had problems with it across the state because it was uniquely for New York City. And but that being said, the courts have continued. They've tried to challenge the constitutionality of it over and over again, and the courts have continued to uphold it. Even the Court of Appeals saying that law, because of New York City and its unique roadways and the millions of people we have residing here crossing these streets, we're particularly situated in a way that we would need a law like that. So those cases come through criminal court, and we oversee and prosecute those.
But there isn't a presumption that someone who violates Priscilla's law is going to be, that the summons, or, well, if they're arrested or if there's a summons issue, that it's going to be a criminal court action, correct?
Correct. As far as I could tell, you're right.
Lori, want to try again?
Hi. Can you hear me? No echo?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I was saying, and you may have passed by this already, that when I listened in on a hearing about Priscilla's Law, I listened to testimony from NYC E-Vehicle Safety Alliance. They're an organization of about 1,000 people. And they said that 90% of riders flee the scene of an accident. And you had started to discuss that earlier, that this would be a tool because that seems to happen. Would you agree that 90% of riders, e-bike riders, do flee the scene? Does that sound appropriate?
I'm not really privy to those statistics. I think that the DOT might have more of that, especially
Right.
because most of those cases don't come through criminal court or Supreme Court. I can tell you I've seen a high incidence of leaving the scene on vehicle, like cars, so I certainly appreciate like I was saying earlier, that people do tend to leave the scene more when they have the inability to be identified, whether it's masking, not having a plate, not having anything that necessarily gives law enforcement the ability to readily identify who that person is. So I don't know about the 90% number, but I'm sure DOT, and I know reps at the DOT, I'm sure you guys do too. They could probably give you the statistics that you need for that.
Thank you. And one last question. What does prosecution do when you run into repeated people who do this ghost plate? Are our laws strong enough to disencourage those kind of things, fines or prosecution, or do you have anything in your office? Because I think this is a very, very big problem today.
No, it's a huge challenge. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think it's been used not only just for low-level offenses and toll evasion, but even for violent crime, right?
Yeah.
People are using these cars as getaway cars and things like that. So, you know, certainly it's a challenge to prosecute these cases because a lot of times these plates are from other jurisdictions where you might need representatives from the Department of Motor Vehicles from Texas to come in and testify as to the actual whether or not that plate even exists. So it can be a very you know, resource intensive prosecution. And that can be a challenge, especially if you're not, you know, depending on how far you're going to take that prosecution. You know,
Thank you.
if it's connected to a heavy case, of course, you would extend the resource. If you're going to get a violation and or an ACD or something very low level, it may not be worth flying someone in from, you know, Texas. So it really just depends on that. But it's something that we take seriously. I think if the laws were drafted differently, or we were able to, I mean, there's so much that needs to be done on those. And I don't know if there's PD is in the room.
No.
No,
No, because I mean, a lot of it, you know, impounding these cars is, you know, I think it hurts people more than anything. I mean, anything I could do with them criminally in the courts on a low-level misdemeanor is nothing compared to taking the car.
I believe they do impound.
Right. I think that's going to be impounding the
more.
car and forcing someone to show up with a proper registration is going to be you know, I just don't know if they have the resources to impound
Right.
the significant number of cars that are out there with forged plates, fake plates, no plates, stolen plates. And, but yeah, I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, thank you, and thank you for all you do.
Sure. Thank you.
Dr. Wayne, yes.
Mr. Kimball, just out of curiosity, for any of these, I guess if assuming that this does go into effect, would any crime that occurs with an e-bike be classified as a vehicular crime, or would it be classified as whatever crime it is, but with the bike as an adjunct?
And we've been classifying DWIs on e-bike. We haven't done it too many. We've had like one, but for all intents and purposes, when you define motor vehicle, they're considered motor vehicles depending on, you know, they have all the same things that are required under VTL. I think it's 125. Quote me if I'm right. Don't quote me if I'm wrong. I think it's 125 of the vehicle and traffic law. It talks about anything that's not muscular powered. And e-bikes really, they're electric powered and they can go really fast. So they're considered vehicles in that sense. And so if you're driving drunk on one of those, you could have a problem. And if you're driving in recklessly and you cause someone significant injury, you can have a criminal problem as well. So I would consider those vehicular crimes.
Thank you, Jay. Ed?
Hey, Josh, I have a question for Jeffrey that's unrelated to Priscilla's law. You good with that? Because I know the discussion was Priscilla's law. It's a DA question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so Jeffrey, I heard you mention, I'm from Bronx Community Board, also Public Safety Committee. And I heard you mention discovery laws being an issue. And we had spoken to Darcel Clark, you know, for years about this, really. Ever since the bail reform came in, there's been more, there's a lot more for you guys to do. And I know initially you lost a lot of staff due to that. And so, I mean, the question kind of remains the same, is how can community boards possibly help to get discovery laws more manageable so the DA can prosecute cases that often get dropped? I know you guys really, because you can't lobby for it, if I'm correct. So I don't know if you have any suggestions, because we know that's been a big issue as far as a lot of cases getting dropped for you guys.
So I'll try to tackle this one the best. I mean, it's a great question and it's a pleasure to meet you. You know, like you were saying about lobbying, you know, the DA was actually up in Albany and gave testimony regarding the discovery laws and including the drugged driving law. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with that, but I don't want to go too much on the side note, but it's a big push towards eliminating the list of controlled substances that that would need to be named for someone to be charged with driving while under the influence of a drug. Right now, 46 states in the United States of America don't require you to name the drug. So picture that. So meaning if a cop pulls you over and you don't tell them what you're high on something and you don't tell them what it is, and they know it because you can't even keep your head straight, and you're all over the place and you're impaired and you can't drive properly. Right now, the cops don't really have much of a recourse under the current law because you have to name the drug. And if you take them back to the precinct and they refuse to give you urine or blood, you can't even prosecute them for driving while impaired by a drug. So there's been a push even by the DA to change that law. As far as what we can do, so discovery and things like that, going back to your original question, because like I said, there's not a lot of lobbying. What we can do in the local communities is make sure that if there's any type of civilian witnesses who observe things, to please give your information to the police and to talk to and cooperate as fully as possible with the prosecutors. Not only do we need to know your names, we need your cooperation, and we need to make sure that you give adequate contact information. Under the discovery laws right now, and it's pretty terrible sometimes because people are scared to give their contact information, especially if it's going to get back to the defendant, right? But that doesn't mean you can't give a different form. You can give an email. You can make a Google Voice number. You don't have to also talk to them. You just have to give them the information. And sometimes we're losing on discovery because we're missing our civilians who see the breaking of the windows, of the cars that are getting broken into or stolen. And they're essential because without them, PD doesn't even matter because they see the actual crime itself. And sometimes PD shows up and then we get in touch with them. We get what we need from them. And sometimes we don't get what we need from the community. And so I'm not suggesting that your community doesn't do that, but I'm just giving you an answer that, the full cooperation of everyone in the community goes a long way. It makes our lives easier when it comes to certifying our compliance with the discovery laws, which can be onerous as it is. That's what you can do. As far as with PD, we can work with them, NYPD, on transfers of information better. And as far as changing the laws overall, that's a whole bigger fix that we're hoping that in the governor's most recent budget bill, there was some push for a level of reform that if it comes through, it looks promising that it'll help us be able to handle the breadth of cases that we deal with on a daily basis.
And when will we know that?
Oh, geez, I don't know, you're talking about things in Albany, but hopefully soon. I mean, whenever the budget has to be finalized, they're going to have to say whether or not the discovery reform is going to be part of that bill. And if it is, I'm sure you'll see it on the front page of a lot of newspapers because it'll be a big deal.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Appreciate you coming and speaking about these very important issues for our community. Thanks.
My pleasure.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, speak loud.
I don't think there are any other questions, so it's good. Well, thank you, Jeff. I think that was wonderful. Really appreciate all your insight. It was really great.
Good. I mean, listen, it's great to meet all of you. If you ever wanted me back to come back, just reach out. Is it Cassie? Who's usually here? Is it Cassie Abadili or
Farah?
Oh, Farah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'll get.
So if you need me to come back and speak on any of these issues, as long as you want me back, if you have a particular case that affects your community, that you want information on, I'm happy to try, I'm here for you guys. I really mean that when I say it. That's why I do this job, and I've been doing it for a long time now. I really care about the community, and my sister used to live in Riverdale, and my dad's a Bronx. My dad was born in the Bronx, raised in the Bronx, and so Bronx means a lot to me. Riverdale community means a lot to me, and so if there's anything I can do, please feel free to reach out.
And congratulations on the new baby.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, he's a joy. It's a blessing for sure.
It's terrific. Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. So that was wonderful. It was good to hear. All right, so we would like to move on to the fiscal year 2027 budget priorities. Does anyone want to throw anything in there? I think Farah had a list of things. It's, there on the table. But it's pretty much the same thing as cross streets that we talked about last time. And,
Same.
yeah,
Okay.
I think there was a question about having lights lit at the intersection. We discussed that 2 meetings ago.
What is,
I think it was 236 or 238 from Independence at the roundabout.
yes, that was me.
You had that.
Yeah, is, by the roundabout there, by the monument,
Yeah.
or by Johnson, when, it feels like you're going blind, cause you really can't see it, it's so dimly lit.
Did they light
It
it?
feels like, no, it's still,
It's still dark. Okay. Still dark at the intersection. Okay, we'll let Farah know. Okay, hopefully they'll work on fixing the step streets by 2027. All this packet of information. Okay. And then, let's see. So that's, item 7, new business, that is, Sylvia, you had an issue? Sylvia, can you hear us?
Yes, I do have
Did
an
you
issue.
request Crossing
It-
235th Street?
I believe that Farah got in touch with you last Friday.
Yes.
I had a horrible situation on an old street, which I have been working towards correcting for 2.5 years. It's West 235th Street in front of Key Food. There is a stop sign that nobody stopped at. And as I was crossing the street, a car came and almost hit me. There was like a piece of paper could have gone between us. That's about as close as she came. She was totally
Sylvia.
oblivious to where she was or what she was doing. There
Sylvia,
was a woman,
I would
what?
suggest Traffic study, and then maybe they could put a flashing yellow light. That's a good beginning.
They're not gonna put a light there.
They could do a flashing one, that like a warning light to slow down, and they could.
Well,
put a stop
Kelly is
sign.
Kelly is well aware of the situation. It was during her tenure. And I
Delaney.
tried everything. The DOT came a couple of times. They turned us down for a light. They didn't really do anything, and someone else is going to get killed there, and I hope it's not me.
Yeah, we don't want that.
And I think we should bring it back to DOT and try to get them to do something else, because what is there now is not enough. It has to be a larger sign or a series of signs. I don't know what. I'm not the the professional person to say what should be
So,
there. A
let's do
light
this,
would
you
be
just-
the best thing, but they won't do that.
Like Sylvia, I went by there a half hour ago. There were people parked and double parked in front of the street sign, so it's very hard to see it at night.
Yeah.
It's not particularly prominent.
It's not
Yeah.
prominent, and you wouldn't, and people would just blow through it. You're right. And that's why, flashing something would, help. But you're right, so we will address it. Thank you, Sylvia. Any other?
we-
items? Yeah,
Could we present it again to a DOT and see if they will put a flashing light there? Something has to be
Right.
done.
yes.
No, it is really bad.
we can do a
Even with the delineators there, when they first put them there, people are walking over them instead of around them, and I've seen more busted noses too. So that didn't help at all. They put those yellow and black.
Well, that
things.
doesn't help because it's not in the intersection.
It doesn't help at all. All there is people like defying walking over them and getting busted noses.
Right. It does nothing for us.
Maybe put a 311 call in also.
I reported it to 311. It's supposed to be going to the mayor's office. I haven't heard anything back from them yet, but I'm going to take it as far as I can do.
Or maybe, Farrah can put a call into Alina too. You know, from the mayor's office, Lena Dowd from the mayor's office.
It's hard to see from the street, yeah.
Maybe she can put a call into her as well, because she's very active.
Who is that?
Alina Dow, like when it comes to the full board meetings from the mayor's office. Community affairs, the director of community affairs from the mayor's office.
I'll get that number from the office.
Great.
But I think this committee should do something about it because it started here and everything that we tried has failed. And there has to be something that can be done. Because I spoke to the commissioner, I spoke to the assistant commissioner at a meeting at St. Margaret. They said they would look into it, they never did. So I have not gotten anything back from anybody in the city. And yet
Right.
I
We'll follow up.
am
Okay.
ready to lose my life. That's not right.
We'll follow up. Thanks. Any other items of new business? Kelly. Go ahead. Kelly,
I'm sorry, I didn't understand you.
Kelly, call on Kelly.
Sorry, I was double muted, so I wouldn't have Laura's issue from earlier. Sorry. I think that it may be in the best interest of the committee at this time to prepare a resolution to go to DOT and have it formally filed with DOT, requesting that they do a traffic study at that intersection again. And also, we can ask them to give us the recent statistics from that intersection. I know that they put the delineators there, but if drivers are still not stopping there, it's not a deterrent. And they need to do something more. So I make a recommendation that the committee put forth a resolution, adopt the resolution, and present it to DOT and ask Farah to send it over to DOT for consideration. And this way we have a formal record of a denial if they choose to do so.
yeah, that will be a record. Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Great. And I had a resolution I wanted to bring up. There was once a lot of rain and it flooded the Henry Hudson Parkway and people were abandoning their cars. So it combines storm water management and what's called a porous surface that would let water drain into the ground. So I would want there's a resolution, I could send it around, but it's basically that if the DOT would use less hard paved surfaces, we would recommend the DDC and the DOT incorporate permeable surfaces where it's possible. They're called permeable pavers. They're like concrete pavers, but they let water in. There are a lot of products out there, so I'd recommend that they discuss it at their design, but should consider it. So that's a resolution that I'm putting forward. That should eliminate runoff. All right.
The last board meeting, I think the Greenway, the Greenway was discussing, the pending project that, the Tibbetts Park.
Yes.
And that also, that involved the right of way with Deegan as well. And I think they had a lot of, but the point being is that, I agree with you in the sense that there are a lot of places for interaction and insight when you do consider that, we have a lot of built environment in the city and a lot of the kind of knockdown effects that we're having is related to that, right? So if it does rain, if there's no place for water to run off, appropriately, if we don't have, appropriate marshland, et cetera, it's going to ultimately flood those areas. And so I think this has an opportunity for a lot of things between environment, parks and recreation, traffic, transportation, et cetera. That if this is a idea that we integrate into ongoing and future projects to, I think, help ameliorate. And like you said, it may be somewhat costly, but again, when you think about, you know, again, we're with environmental changes, we've had so many storms where I mean, where it's like, it seems like the DD gets flooded like every other day. And yeah, and the parkways are a given, but, I think that this is an idea that certainly if we can get, other committees to dovetail with it, I think that this can definitely get some traction.
It's a great idea. Dovetail.
It's too bad that, we didn't know about that permeable, sidewalks. Cause I remember when DOT built that, I used to live on 2621 Palisade Avenue, but 2727 is like directly from Cape Park Street. And it used to be like regular sidewalks, they took away like the greenery for the rain to absorb into it. And they built these two things, I call them the tonsils, big tonsils, I figured they'd slow down the traffic and it did nothing but flood out, get 4 feet of water to people's apartments. It's just too bad they didn't have this in that project, if they wanted to make it wider, cause it was really bad.
Yeah, so the more paved surface, the more the water, funnels.
There's nowhere for it to
There's
go.
no direct.
Yeah, and especially in hilly areas or.
Exactly what it was.
And then it washes out the soil, so you get sinkholes. And it's very problematic because all the debris clogs the storm drains. This has happened a lot, so. I just think with every large major street, like in California, the requirements at 25%, like driveways have permeable surfaces. You know, it's areas you don't use like empty land.
I'm gonna look it up and see what it looks like.
Well, I think one perfect example is, I think, one of the I think it was Hurricane after Maria. Where Houston, a lot of the damage that happened in Houston was because so much of Houston is covered with its paved surfaces. And so, even though it was maybe like 2 inches of rain or something trivial, it flooded the city because again, it has literally nowhere to go. There's nowhere for it to go. Yeah.
Wish they would have had that in Florida, my daughter got flooded out so bad, the last 2 storms they had.
Florida has a high water. source.
Yeah, cause they had a high, what they call a surge,
Yeah.
and then my daughter's and her husband's car looked like fish tanks.
Yeah, that's a real issue, so
Yeah.
you get this drainage issue. So I'm just asking if the DOT considers it and as an option. Sometimes they just look like an X with grass in between, a block with an X.
You know,
Or
I've never seen
gravel.
it before, I have to look it up.
Yeah, otherwise they look like hexagons and you fill it in with what's called little pea gravel that lets it go down. Yeah, all right,
It's really
so
interesting.
that's that. Yeah, there's a lot of cool products out there, the Navy has some. But does anyone have any questions, comments? All right, I think that wraps it up for the evening.
Okay.
That's great.
A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. I can do it, perfect. Thank you, everyone.
After that.
Good.
Thank you.
you're gonna stop recording?
Oh, yes, I will. So I put my phone in my pocket, thank you. Bottom, right, down. No, top right, right there?
Stop, you can stop there.
Right?
Yes. You could, stop and then, so stop recording again, and then hit yes, not cancel. And then.
Oh, I'm sorry.